Hi, my name is Eric.Kimberling. I'm the founder and CEO of Third Stage Consulting. And one of the blogs I just wrote recently here in the last few days is an article I read about Lidl, which is a German grocery retailer based in Germany. They recently tried to implement SAP, and they spent about 500 million euros on the project, which is close to 600 million US dollars, and had to pull the plug on the project and eventually just went back to their legacy inventory management system. And I always find these failures to be really interesting. And I prefer to write and video blog about successes. If you read my blogs on the Third Stage website, you'll find a lot of my articles, including a recent article about successful implementations. And we took a case study of one of our recent clients that is in the process of implementing SAP S4 HANA. And we wrote a little case study about what they've done to make that successful, and then some of the pitfalls they've experienced and the ways they've overcome those pitfalls. So that's generally the way I like to look at these types of projects, but in this case, it's always good to also look at failures, which is kind of an extreme example of what can go wrong when you don't follow implementation best practices. And some of the key findings or takeaways that I pull from the article as I read it there were 5 different things, and I blog about this in the recent blog that I published on our website. The first is that organizations oftentimes are unwilling to make the changes they need to. There's a really interesting specific example in the article that I linked to from my blog, where they talk about how Lidl had a way of, they had historically looked at their inventory management by looking at purchase price, whereas SAP's standard functionality out of the box is based on retail price. And so that was just an interesting dynamic where they decided that it was more important to keep things the way they were, and they tried to customize SAP to fit that as-is state, if you will. Now, I'm not familiar with Lidl. I don't know how critical that business requirement was or whether or not that's something they could actually change. But it was something that I thought was really interesting about how SAP and other types of ERP software really need to be reconciled with the way your business runs today. And you have to do one of 2 things. You either have to change the software to fit your business, or you have to change your business to fit the software. And there's no right or wrong or easy answer, but you just have to recognize that a lot of times companies aren't willing to make the changes they need to. And it sounds like in this case, they probably didn't make the changes they needed to make the project successful. And that's just one of, I'm sure, many examples that they faced throughout that implementation. A second thing that I took away from reading the article is about software customization. It sounds like they customized the software quite a bit, and our research shows that about 90% of organizations do customize software to some degree, but it's a slippery slope. Once you start to customize and end users realize that you can customize and that you will customize, a lot of times that becomes a symptom of a deeper issue, which is people don't want to change, and so they end up requesting customization. So it's really important to have some solid due diligence and project governance and controls in place to where you can validate and prioritize customization needs and make sure that you're not just covering up a deeper seated resistance to change type of issue. The other thing that's a takeaway here is a lot of times when we deal with clients that are struggling with customization and perhaps having to customize too much, we find that it's actually because they don't have a good organizational change management mechanism in place. They don't have a good strategy and plan for dealing with organizational change, so they end up customizing the software. And that very well could be what happened here with this particular case study, a retailer, although, again, I'm not close to the details other than what I've read in the press over the last few days since the news broke on this story. The third thing that I write about in the blog is about how choosing your SAP system integrator or your ERP system integrator, whichever software you might be using, is important, but it's not the only answer. In this case, it sounds like they deferred pretty largely to their system integrator. And that's something I see a lot with our clients, even right now, especially with S4 HANA being a relatively new product. Oracle and Microsoft Dynamics also have pretty new products in the marketplace in terms of their flagship products. So there's not a lot of knowledge out there outside of the reseller and system integrator channels. So what we see is a lot of companies having this dangerous blind faith in their system integrators and just kind of deferring the entire project to them. And again, I don't know if this is exactly what happened here with Lidl in Germany, but I'm speculating or assuming that it may have been the case just based on some of the facts that I've read of the story so far. The fourth thing is that it sounds like they had a lot of turnover at the executive level while this transformation was happening over the course of, I think it was 4 or 5 years, or maybe even a little bit longer. that they were trying to get the system implemented. And it was just a good kind of a stark reminder that when you've got executive turnover, or more commonly even executive misalignment, that really trickles down the organization, and it really defeats or undermines the odds of your project succeeding. So when your executives aren't aligned, or if your project's not aligned with your executives, even if the executives themselves are aligned, what ends up happening is your project ends up getting out of sync with what the organization needs and wants, and that creates a lot of problems later on. So that's something else from an organizational change perspective that we always advise our clients, is make sure that you're looking at alignment with how your project is being implemented, the decisions you're making, the business process decisions you're rolling out, the organizational design changes. Make sure that's all aligned with your executive's vision and kind of where you're headed as an organization, because it's really common. It's one of those things that you don't really hear a lot about, and people don't talk a lot about, which is that project teams and in these implementation initiatives in general tend to get misaligned with the overall vision and strategy of the organization. And then the fifth and final thing that I wrote about in this particular blog is that the SAP software works. I know everyone likes to rail on SAP because it's a big, complex, robust system. There's a lot of high-profile failures out there that you can point to with SAP. If you go back 10 or 20 years, you've got Hershey's and Waste Management, and now obviously this is another one that'll go down in history as a big failure of SAP's. But one thing that SAP, in my opinion, struggles with is that a lot of their clients are Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, large multinational organizations. So when they fail, you're going to hear about it. But what I found is that companies that implement other types of software, whether it's Microsoft Dynamics or Oracle or PeopleSoft, Infor, Epic, or whatever, they're just as likely to fail, and typically they fail because of the same types of reasons why people with SAP commonly fail. So the point here is that typically the ERP software that's out there today, whether it's SAP or any other product, it works. One of the stats that SAP has out on their website, if you go look, is that 80% of retailers in the Forbes Global 2000 are SAP customers. So they obviously have a lot of customers in the retail and grocery space that are using the product successfully. So I don't think it's really an issue of does the product work. The bigger question is, does the product, or can the product work for your organization, and can you implement it in a way that's going to work for your organization? Not to say that SAP is perfect or any software is perfect. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, but in general, the software works. It's just a matter of how well aligned it is with your business operations and how well you reconcile the differences between the two. So those are just a few of the things that are takeaways here. I think the bottom line here is that, in my years as an expert witness, I unfortunately have to analyze a lot of cases like these. In our experience providing implementation QA for system integrators, providing organizational change management support on SAP and other types of projects, these are some of the common things we run into. So it's not just a matter of this particular case study or this particular failure. This is something we see pretty commonly in other types of implementations as well. And again, these lessons here that we're talking about have really nothing to do with SAP. I think these are things that would apply whether you're implementing Oracle or Microsoft Dynamics, or any other product for that matter out there in the marketplace. So thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm posting more and more content as time goes by. Thanks very much for your time, and you can learn more at thirdstage-consulting.com. That's where you can find my blog and other white papers and content about independent ERP best practices. Thanks very much, and have a great day.